Hi, this is Jason Mudd with Axia Public Relations, and on this episode of On Top of PR, we are talking about Undercover Boss, and we've got one of their executive producers and head of creative sharing inside information as to what it takes to be on Undercover Boss and what that experience is like. This is going to be a great show, especially if you're a fan of Undercover Boss, if you're thinking about getting your boss on Undercover Boss, if you're the boss and you want to be on Undercover Boss, or if you're an employee working in the trenches who just senses that there needs to be some change in the organization, but you don't know how and where to start. We're going to give all that information away in this episode of On Top of PR. So stay with us.
Welcome to On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by Review Maxer.
Hello and welcome to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd, and today I'm joined by Mike from Undercover Boss. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Mike, why don't you give us your full name, title, and your role on Undercover Boss?
Sure. My name is Mike Cotton. I'm one of the executive producers on Undercover Boss, which we make for various different countries around the world. I'm currently based in London, but I'm an executive producer on the US version that also airs on CBS.
Very nice, very nice. And so we have had the great pleasure of working with your organization for years, helping bosses get on the show Undercover Boss. And I think our audience would be very interested in learning about the show and the criteria and what makes a good boss and all that good stuff. So why don't we start there? So at a high level, what is it that you're looking for on the show for a company? What's a good fit for a company? What are you looking for in a company?
Sure. Well, assuming everyone knows the show, obviously Undercover Boss, the whole idea of the show is that we take a high-level executive from a well-known business and we send them incognito within their own company to discover what's really going on within their business, to work alongside employees on the front line, speak to them, hear from them, work alongside them, and find out what's going on. So it's kind of like a back to the floor experience. In terms of the businesses that we are looking for companies that are ideally nationally recognized brands that have $1 million plus turnovers, that are companies that the viewers that watch the show on CBS might recognize. But above and beyond that, I'm really looking for a boss that wants to do the experience, that wants to embrace the undercover opportunity and have a specific kind of heartfelt reason for why they want to go undercover in the first place.
Very nice. Yes. And I also know that it's important to your organization that the boss be somebody who represents diversity. Is that still the case?
Absolutely. I mean, hey, look, we, in the current climate, of course, in particular, it always has been, but we want we want to kind of feature a diverse workforce and also feature diverse bosses. I think, it's trying to find diversity within a C-suite of a business isn't always necessarily the easiest thing. I think there should be more diversity in executive suites. But yes, if we could feature if there's diversity within our casting, then I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. I know that that's been, as you've kind of expressed, sometimes the challenge is finding somebody who's high ranking in the organization who meets that profile, especially when, I know a season or two ago, you guys were looking to find even more kind of younger and entrepreneurial bosses to go on the show. And I think it's hard to find all of that criteria also with the size company that you're looking for. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think we're well aware of that. And I think we're sort of the last couple of seasons where that's sort of changing. I think initially on Undercover Boss, our kind of casting remit was always companies that had got X $100 million turnover, where they had X number of outlets in X number of locations. And I think that's, I think for us, we are in season 10 now of the show. We've made over 100 episodes. I think what we're looking for now is kind of, yes, we absolutely want recognizable brands. And yes, we want big businesses. But more above and beyond that, what we want, I think we can forgo some of those things if we've got a boss that's a brilliant character or a boss that has a really interesting reason for why they want to go undercover and has an interesting story.
Yeah, great. And, you're hitting on all the points that we talk about with our clients also is, you've got to have a reason that you want to go on the show, and it can't just be because you want more visibility for the company and the brand, right? And ideally, it's that you want to connect with the field and get in the trenches with the employees, and specifically maybe, and correct me if any of this is wrong, but you also want to connect with any changes that may have been made, and you want to see them live in the field. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think Undercover Boss is at its best when it's at its most real, and by that I mean when a boss really embraces the whole experience. This isn't Undercover Boss isn't a promotional video. That's not that wasn't what it was set up for. We want people who are willing to go in there and sort of see what's really happening. And yes, I'm sure they will undoubtedly always meet people that they'll connect with, and the people that have amazing heartfelt stories. But sometimes they do also undercut, see issues and see problems firsthand that needs to be fixed. But sort of for us, that's sort of one of the best things about it. I think if you ask anyone, nobody believes that their workplace is completely perfect. But to have someone from authority come in, discover that problem, address it, and fix it is a brilliant thing. So absolutely, for Undercover Boss to work well, you need to have a boss that will wholeheartedly throw themselves into the process and work with us on it, and sort of trust us that it will sort of all work out in the end.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, and speaking of the end, that's probably everybody's favorite part is the reward segment.
Yeah.
And we write occasionally on our blog about Undercover Boss and why you should go on, and questions to ask yourself and things like that. And we get almost an overwhelming response from people who say you should come to this location, or they should say, my loved one works at this store and they feel underappreciated. And we want to acknowledge those responses, and we want to empathize with those individuals. But at the same time, my explanation to them is like, you have as good of a chance or better of winning the lottery than you do happening to be one of the shadowed employees on Undercover Boss, because it just doesn't work that way, right? You have to have one, a willing boss, right? And two, they have to happen to go to that location, and then happen to pick you to be the person that the boss is shadowing for the day. What would you say to those same people that they want someone to come to their location, and or they want a boss to shadow them so they can kind of be exposed to what's going on at their location?
What would I say to those people? I guess Undercover Boss, it is about the boss meets. They do work, and they kind of work alongside and shadow individual employees, and quite often, those people often get rewarded. But from above and beyond that, bosses do learn. What we hope from this is that bosses will learn things that will mean that they'll make company-wide changes that could affect those people. I think if your boss was going to go on the show, you'd hope that regardless of whether they met you or not, that they would learn stuff that would mean that your work life would change. And that has happened in the past. We've had bosses that have set up employee relief funds or have raised the minimum wage across their entire organization. I get that, it's like winning the lottery, isn't it? If you're picked if you're an employee and you're picked to appear on the show in some ways. But, like I say, you'd hope that bosses would learn and would make changes to their organization as a whole. I mean, that's the dream.
Yeah. Well, and to credit to your show, I think a lot of bosses do go on the show and they get exposed to things that he or she was not aware of that was going on in the organization. I also really like, I've seen every episode. I like where the boss comes in and, has an agenda. Like, I want to see how this plan that we devised is rolling out, how this policy is working. We rolled out new IT equipment. One of our clients rolled out a new point of sale system in their retail stores. And they wanted to see how well it was working since they spent so much money on it. And then, to no surprise, every boss goes undercover and they probably have pages worth of notes of things that, they picked up on, but they have to kind of focus on the high level stuff to be able to remember it all. But absolutely, I remember, our client said they made this huge investment in infrastructure for IT, and then come to find out it either wasn't working or the company or the local management opted to not even turn it on. Not even enable it because it didn't work well. Yeah. So, that by itself is priceless information, to gain from the field like that, on top of the exposure that you would get from being on the show. So tell us what's going on right now, meaning you're currently kind of doing some casting calls or requests for bosses to come on the show, right?
Yeah. We absolutely are. We just started the production of our new season of Undercover Boss. So we are casting for more episodes. We're looking for businesses to take part. We've got like a team that are reaching out to various different organizations to talk to bosses to see who wants to take part. And yeah, we're going for a new season. I think this season, above all, I think it could be one of our best and most exciting seasons. I think now is no better time for a boss to sort of go into an organization and see how they want to change. There's so much that's happening in the world. There's COVID. There's the Black Lives Matters movement. There's so many things that, so many issues and conversation topics that workplaces need to address to say how they can kind of move their company forward. So I think this is kind of like a really exciting opportunity for bosses to be able to go in and find out how they can improve their company and how they can change. Yeah. It's quite interesting. This show's there's two things I think are really interesting. When this show was first launched, it was launched off the back of many years ago, off the back of a huge global recession, and it started in the UK and then was shown in the US.
I remember that, yeah.
And it was huge. And the reason why I think it was huge is because lots of the workforce felt that the bosses were out of touch with their lives, and that they sat up in their ivory towers and made decisions and didn't really know what was going on. And I kind of feel there's, and that's because there's such a huge period of change. And I kind of think we're in a huge period of change right now as well. Businesses are having to change and adapt, from whether it's the travel industry to the hospitality industry to the manufacturing. Everything's changing. So I think if you want to get a grip of your company at the moment and want to find out what's going on, this is like a brilliant opportunity to do that. And not only do that, but also show the general public that as a business, you're talking about these things and making changes.
Brilliant. Yes. So I totally agree. It is a great opportunity. The climate is ripe again. I remember when the show first launched, it was, kind of in the middle or coming out of the recession. And it was important for, I think, Americans to feel more connected to bosses, or bosses, more importantly, to begin to sense the issues that are being faced in the field by the average worker. This is a good time for us to take a quick break, Mike, in the show. And so we'll be right back with more questions after this quick break.
Would you like to get on Undercover Boss? We can help. Check out our microsite, getonundercoverboss.com. That's getonundercoverboss.com. There you will find products, services, and resources to help you and your company connect with the show's producers and featured bosses. GetOnUndercoverBoss.com is not affiliated with nor endorsed by CBS, Undercover Boss, its production company, or affiliates.
Okay, and we're back. Thank you for that break. Mike, I wanted to also kind of ask you, how many episodes did you get renewed for this season?
We are making 9 more episodes this season.
9 episodes, okay. And what would be kind of the timeline? We're recording this in early September. What's the timeline in which you want to have the guests or the bosses all confirmed by, ballpark?
Sure. Well, the way our production process works is that we are looking for bosses at the moment. Once we find an organization that we want to work with and wants to work with us and we think would work for the show, we sort of do the deal with them, sign contracts, and then send some people into their organization to sort of look for employees and areas in which we might be able to film. But our current production schedule is that we would start to sign up organizations in the coming months. We would start to do that research within their organizations just before Christmas, and then start shooting in the new year.
Okay, so that's very similar to what we've experienced with our clients in the past as well. So, yeah. And then, so you shoot into the new year, and then kind of what's the timeline for post-production and the episodes to go live?
So if you imagine if you're a company that signed up, that sort of casting and research process within your organization takes, I'd say, about anything between 3 to 5 weeks. We then do it with the filming period itself is up to 10 days. It normally takes slightly less than the boss's time, but we say to allow 10 days for it. And then post that, we have the whole editing process. That takes about 2 months, usually. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we deliver it to the network. When the network shows it, it's kind of a matter that's out of our control. I think traditionally they show it it can vary. I think their schedules have been changing because of COVID at the moment. Mm-hmm. But, we would hope that we would deliver this season sort of summer next year, and it would either go out in kind of end of summer 21 or in the full schedule at some point.
Okay, excellent. You guys,
sorry, I was about to say we're just about to start airing 5 of the episodes hopefully 5 of the episodes that we made delivered earlier this year, which should start, yes, I think in October on a Friday evening.
So does that mean you're currently only in the market for 4 additional bosses?
No, we're in the market for 9 bosses at the moment.
Okay, great.
That's from a previous season that we delivered.
Yeah. Well, speaking of bosses, obviously, without getting too specific, can you talk about maybe some mistakes that people make coming in as the boss on the show?
Mistakes? Things that they learn, or mistakes that they make?
Like mistakes they make coming into the show, coming into the episode.
I think the only mistake a boss can make coming to the episode is when they don't give themselves over to the process. And by that, I mean, I think it's very hard when you're a boss of a big organization to kind of relinquish all power and control.
Yeah, right.
Hey, I'm used to running the show on the programs that I work on. And, if you're someone that's used to running your own organization and knowing exactly where you're going to be at what time and where, and having complete control of the situation, coming onto Undercover Boss is a difficult process, but actually can sometimes be the most rewarding for them. But, if you come onto this process, you've got to be prepared to not know every detail about the journey you're about to go on. You don't always know where you're going or what department you're going to work in or what employee you're going to meet or work with, because if you knew that, then it wouldn't be a genuine surprise and we wouldn't be seeing your reactions for the first time on TV, which can be a learning process for some of them. I think they'll enjoy it at the end, but that can be quite tricky to start with. Yeah,
I imagine. I know when the show first started, one of the priorities were to have the boss experience the lifestyle of the person that is in that actual position. Yeah. So it used to be that you would fly them to the new city or the new destination. My understanding was that they sometimes wouldn't know where they're going next until the night before or that morning. And I know some of the bosses just from being connected to some of them said, they tried to put me up at the Red Roof Inn and I'm not used to staying there. So I quickly, checked into the hotel, did my little, recap interview, and then scooted over the street to, the Ritz-Carlton or whatever that they're used to. And I know you guys don't want to hear that, but is that still the case? Like you want them to experience kind of economy accommodations?
Weirdly, yes. I say weirdly. What I mean is that in the ideal world, yes. And last season, we sort of wanted to change things a little bit. And last season, we tried to be a bit more raw and authentic than we have on past seasons. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean, Undercover Boss is such a well-known show now, such a well-known brand. And I think, if you look at the feedback from viewers, lots of people say, this can't be real. The employees must know that they were on the show. This is all a setup. And it's not. It's absolutely real and it's absolutely authentic. Yeah. And we want to try and enhance that last season. So last season, we did go back to the bosses weren't staying in 5-star hotels. They were staying in the types of hotels that kind of blue collar workers might stay in. And we try to do that as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Hey, look, we've featured all things on the show. I remember we did an episode once with a boss called, I think it's Stephen Klubeck, who ran Diamond Resorts, and we filmed it, made it part of the show, where he checked into one hotel, didn't want to stay there, and got straight back in his car and then checked into a 5-star hotel. Yeah. So, and that, and I kind of like it when we feature that. I sort of feel like we can break the mold now and then.
Yeah, right. Well, especially, I mean, I've had people say, I own hotel chain or, multiple hotels. If I'm in a city where there's one of my hotels, I'm going to stay there as opposed to wherever, they might want me to stay. So I can completely understand that. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about, you guys did 1 or 2 seasons where you focused on celebrities. And I know initially that was very successful. How did that go overall, and what does the future look like for doing more celebrity Undercover Boss?
I think it was something that we tried, and I think it went really well. I don't think we'd ever rule out doing it again. I think it's a slightly different thing, isn't it? I think it's sort of undercover celebrity sort of felt it was more of like a talent search in a way. So there, and I think they did well. I think it's not where Undercover Boss' heart is within businesses and organizations. that are much kind of which are more relatable to the viewers at home. But I mean, it was fun. It was fun to try out. I think it was a fun experiment.
Yeah, you mentioned this earlier. People have their own opinions, and it's often hard to change people's mind, especially it seems like in the current era. But a lot of people, have told me that they think the show is fake and it's a promotional video. From working with you and others at your organization, I certainly know that it's not. But what would you say to those viewers, or maybe even non-viewers, who say, I don't watch because, clearly it's not as it appears? Can you kind of walk them through, exactly how it's a surprise to the boss, and what they could even look for on the show, and even examples of that?
I can, without giving away too much, in case anyone who ever is filmed with watches this.
Right.
But absolutely, we go to great lengths to ensure that this is a real and authentic experience for the boss and for the people that take part. And by that, I mean we work very closely with the organization or the business that we sign up, and make sure that sort of everything that we do is kind of kept at a distance from the boss, so everything's new and surprising for them. Like you said, we don't reveal to the bosses where they're going until just before, so they can't kind of research and prep for it themselves. And then in terms of the employees that we film with, we go to great lengths for them to not think it's Undercover Boss. That used to be in early seasons, that used to be very easy because it wasn't such a well-known show. Right. Now we kind of have a cover company that we've got a separate company, a cover company that looks for all those people and does all that research. We have a ruse, like, so that everyone who's filming thinks we're making an entirely different show. We can have sort of decoy people or decoy crew members put in to distract people. We'll do everything that's needed to kind of keep it a surprise. Right. And I genuinely think, even right to the point where everyone thinks, oh, when they get to the bit at the end where they're giving the rewards, they must know that it's Undercover Boss, and they don't, because we're constantly confusing them. We're constantly changing things to sort of mix it up. And sometimes the boss's cover does get blown, but we actually feature that because I think it's a good thing. It shows that it's still real. But it's one of those things. I think I sometimes think, God, I wish we could make a behind the scenes program about how Undercover Boss is made, because it would really show that people how genuine it is. But obviously, then that would sort of ruin lots of our trade secrets in of how we make it. Yeah. But those rewards when we film them sort of play out almost as live. And what you're seeing is sort of what happens. Yeah. I think it would be very interesting to do kind of a reel like you're describing, where you show kind of some of that behind the scenes of what goes on, and what happens. And I would say also that anybody I know that's been on the show, their feedback is always very positive about just how creative you and your team were to pull off those ruses and make it so there's so much going on, or so many distractions, that they don't have the opportunity to see that. Also, I've had clients, who I think would be great for the show, but they don't want to go on the show because they say, everybody knows who I am. I have a strong, big personality. I'm always in front of our team members. I'm traveling, and candidly, some of them have very unique voices or unique mannerisms, or maybe even unique, shape or size that they think would really give them away. But I tell them all the time, I'm like, have you ever seen a movie where there's a character who you just don't recognize because of their, attire and their hair and their makeup, and maybe even a voice changer involved? And so there is a story that you guys have shared with me. And I think I know what episode it is, but I don't want to, assume. But there's one where the boss is having lunch during a lunch break at a picnic table, sitting right across from his own son, and his own son doesn't even recognize him because the hair and makeup, etc., is so good. Absolutely, that's absolutely and that's a true story. Yes, we had that, and I can't remember which episode it was now. There's been so many of them, but yes, we had one moment I can remember when the boss was in disguise and the son was sat table next to him. In fact, walked straight past him, and when the boss sort of grabbed his hand as he walked past, the picture on his face was priceless, because he had no idea that it was his father. But I think that's if that was one reason holding someone back from taking part, I would say that they should talk to us, because we can, we have, like, we did that whole series of Undercover Celebrity where well-known celebrities were disguised and people had no idea who they were. Right. In our last season, we did film with a company called Walk-Ons, and one of the business partners within that company was Drew Brees, obviously the famous quarterback.
Yeah.
So, and we successfully disguised him and in his hometown, where he said it would be impossible to do it, and we still managed to do it, and and his cover wasn't blown. So there's prosthetics, there's various different things that we can do to kind of help with that.
Well, you all get a lot of credit for doing a great job with those bosses and those situations. To be able to pull that off is not an easy task. But again, you're professionals, you're experts, you have the experience, you know what to do to make that happen. So yeah, that's great.
I think we've done 120 episodes now of Undercover Boss in the US alone,
Mm-hmm.
and many more hundreds around the world. This show is made obviously in the UK, all around Europe, in Japan, in Canada. So yeah, we know what we're doing now.
Well, speaking of Canada, we have a company who is interested in coming on the show who is both in Canada and in the United States, and so I'm talking to one of your casting people about them right now, and I think that could be very interesting to kind of see if they would be a good fit for that. So speaking of, let's just kind of run through for the audience one more time. So the size company you're typically looking for is what to what as far as number of employees and annual revenue?
I would say, look, we sort of stopped putting a cap on in terms of the revenue itself.
Mm-hmm.
We want them to have $1 million plus revenue, obviously. In terms of the number of locations as well, I'm looking for organizations that have enough locations that we can successfully send someone undercover. Mm-hmm. We've had some business in the past that don't have lots of locations, but they're a well-known brand name.
Right.
If they've still got enough that we can send someone, undercover successfully, then we'll look at doing it. Mm-hmm. I think we're not. It's for me, it's about the brand recognition more than the turnover and the number of locations.
Right. Okay. Because I've seen many episodes where you'll go into consumer houses to provide a consumer service with the boss. I've seen where you've gone to warehousing and manufacturing and distribution centers. So I tell companies all the time, think creatively about where that might be. I think there was one episode where some kind of retail chain, they went to the farm or to the dairy that they use. And obviously that dairy wasn't owned by the company, but it was important for the boss to understand the process, the people, and who he's doing business with.
Absolutely. And there's all those secondary suppliers that often still supply materials or services that affect the quality of their product.
Absolutely.
So it's important for them to check it out. And I actually love it when we do that because it sort of provides more variety within the episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Okay, good. Well, I'm so pleased to have you on the show today. And, certainly if there's people out there who want to learn more about Undercover Boss, they can certainly check out the website. We also, have some content on our website where we help to explain how the process works and why companies should explore it. Hopefully somebody watching or listening today says, you know what, I want to, explore this for my company. And so if that's somebody out there and they're interested, they could certainly contact our organization. We can help them with that. I guess, I've been asked this a lot, so let me ask you this question. Let's say, you're somebody in an organization where you think this is a great opportunity for the boss to come undercover and experience, being undercover at our company, but you don't have the CEO's ear, or the org structure is not such that you have the ability to reach out to the CEO. If you're that worker within the organization, what do you recommend you do? Because one thing I obviously advise is, hey, the fewer people who know that the company is exploring this, the better, right? The easier it is to keep it undercover. So if you're putting your mind, if you put your mind around, person X that works for the company would really like to see the boss go undercover, should they write a letter to the boss? What do you think they should do?
That's a very good question. I think yes. I would say try and talk directly to the boss. However that method of communication is, if they can email them, if they can write a letter, or if they can contact them in one way or another. I think that would be the best thing to do. Or whoever that boss's right-hand man or woman is, can get direct contact to them. I think quite often I think quite often when we can talk to the bosses direct, we can get a company on board, because I think once they watch the episodes and they understand the process, if it's something that even slightly appeals to them, we can sort of, we can talk with them or work with them on the project. Our best episodes when we sort of collaborate with the boss. Right. So, try and contact them direct.
Yeah, that's what I recommend also. the boss obviously has to be interested. I think that's a popular misconception too, is that it's like a gotcha, like somehow your show is undercover and the boss doesn't even know it. And of
Yeah.
course, I wonder if people have ever seen the show when they think that's what's happening, right? So
Yeah.
it's not, hey boss, we're undercover and you're busted, right? It's the boss goes undercover to see what's happening, and I think people confuse that all the time.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's like a nervousness somewhere. Yes, I totally think, this isn't a candid camera show. Like you say,
Right.
the bosses eventually own their journeys.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that change things at the end.
Yeah.
I can't really think of any organizations that we've ever made a show with on Undercover Boss that have ended up unhappy at the end.
Yeah.
I always say to bosses, if this was an action movie, you're the hero. And an action movie never ends with the hero looking bad at the end.
Right.
They succeed and they change things, and they win. And so that's the whole idea of this show as well.
Yeah, and I just think it's, I've learned from what your organization has told me and what I've observed as a viewer, as well as guiding clients through the process, is that it's an extremely rewarding and fulfilling experience. And I tell people, there was the reason you decided to go on the show, which was 9 times out of 10 because you're a CEO. You wanted either to improve your systems and see what's going on in the field. You wanted the visibility for your company so that you were more visible in the marketplace. But what comes out of it is that you see that you've got great people working for you. You have a ton of impact and influence on their life, and you can give back to the people who give to your company every day in a meaningful way. And it just blows me away. I mean, some of the programs that have been created through a boss, just getting in those trenches unfiltered and seeing what's really happening. And I think everybody wants to improve their company, make their company better for the customer, better for the employee. And so I've even told clients, look, if you don't qualify to be on Undercover Boss, you still might want to figure out a way that you can be in the trenches and maybe even go undercover yourself. And with modern technology, it's not unreasonable for a successful company to be able to put their CEO undercover with prosthetics and other things, although that's a little extreme. But there are ways to go undercover and mystery shop and shadow your employees and things like that could be extremely valuable for any company. You don't just have to go on national television to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Mike, anything else you wanted to share with our audience before we wrap up today?
No, I don't think so. I think that's it. I mean, it's been great talking, really great talking with you.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like we've got a few different companies to be talking about, so I'm excited about that, and hopefully we can secure a few of those 9 spots you have available for bosses. So it's been a real pleasure. I'm glad you were here and able to share a little bit more. And again, many thanks to you, and thanks to our audience for participating today.
This has been On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by Review Maxer.